Welcome to episode 190 of the Reptile Gumbo podcast. It's me and Robert. Katie will be here shortly. Remember, she always pulls the short straw and has to be the parent because apparently kids require time and stuff.
Howdy, y'all.
That chameleon just fell. I know nobody can see this because it's radio, but how do these things survive in the wild?
I don't know, man.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's still not a crested gecko.
Where's he at?
He fell. He's on the side of the cage.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
He's like, hey, jeez.
Yeah, it's like cliffhanger back there.
Yep. All I can see is his butthole.
Chameleon butthole.
It's like slowly sliding.
Yeah. He's
all right.
again not as dumb
Great radio.
Not as dumb as a gargoyle or as a
Look,
crested gecko.
it's out. One of the skinks is out.
Yeah, just pointing out animals that nobody can see. Hope you all enjoying this great radio. So let's go ahead and get sponsor stuff. Katie's not here, so I'm gonna run through. If you're looking for a rack cage, a sign, anything that a laser can cut, that's not metal, get a hold of Robert at lsreptileracks.com. Robert can do what else. Katie has a lot on the phone. I don't have it, but it's just go back and listen to the previous episode. It's there, or the previous 189 episodes. They're there. Little Shop of Horrors is a small feeder and pet supply business based in San Antonio, and they regularly schedule feeder meetups around San Antonio as well as other neighboring towns and cities. They offer shipping on their feeder insects, ice pods, and are working on starting shipping on their feeder rodents, which is true. I'm getting a practice package from him this week. We'll see how it goes, and then we can add that they do shipping soon, which will be great. All feeders are raised on a nutritional diet that optimizes the health of the reptiles and the amphibians that consume them. Yeah, he has a very complex diet.
Dude, I know I missed the night that he was on, and I hate that I missed that. But everything I've seen that Lewis does is like, he reminds me a lot of Lee and Amanda Reddy from Reddy's Rainforest, in the fact that everything is top notch.
Okay,
I see Nathan.
I agree. I just had to. So I'm amazed every day when I look at our website because of our listener Nathan Holcomb, who's made the best website. By the way, go to thereptilegumbopodcast.com and check out the website that Nathan did because he's awesome. But he's right. Every blurb for all the sponsors is on there. I could have just read it. It's right there. He put it in there. Your blurb right there. If you're looking for high quality PVC rack, look no further than Lone Star.
So he had to have sat there and listened
and typed it out.
And typed that out. So that's pretty
Nathan,
awesome.
I say this all due respect. Go do stuff, man.
No, keep doing what you're doing, bro.
I can't tell you. We're talking about Lewis because of Nathan. I can tell you if you need to go listen to episode 164
again tonight. We're gonna fight. You've said it 3 or 4 times now.
It's
so weird.
It's a filler.
It's
go listen to episode 164. That's Louis Patoi's Little Shop of Horrors episode, and you can listen to. We talked about the diet that he feeds all of his reptiles.
I'm gonna be honest. That is the only episode that I've ever actually listened to.
I can believe that. Well, no, prior to you being on.
Yeah. Because I was actually interested in that one.
And we'll have to have him back on.
Not that I haven't been interested in other people that I wasn't here that night.
We'll get him back on here.
Yeah.
Nathan said he had to listen to the stuff 30 times. I'm sorry, Nathan.
You know that if you would have just messaged Katie, she has it in her phone. She could have copy, paste, send. And then you could have copy, paste in the
Don't say that now. He did all the work.
Well, it's too late now.
Don't make him feel bad.
I don't know if he feels bad.
Let me go. Hey, you know what? Let me go to our sponsors page and I'll just read you the stuff off of our sponsor page. If you need a UVB LED bulb, reach out to VivTech Products using code
Still Gumbo 22.
It's Gumbo 22. Says listen to the podcast with the code Gumbo 22 to save 15% on all your LED bulbs, smart devices, snake bags, and UV meter when they finally make one. Remake one, I guess. If you have not gotten an LED bulb from VivTech, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, what are you waiting on? Because they're awesome.
They are amazing. You really need to go do that. Nathan said he hates messaging at 3 a.m. Don't worry, Katie's phone's on silent. You can message her at 3 a.m. And if you message me at 3 a.m., I'm probably awake. So it's fine. I mean, I got a good 2 hours of sleep at that point in the morning, 3 to 5. I'll be good. But seriously, go to VivTech, get you a bulb. And for anything that you have, any reptile you have that needs UVB, those bulbs are amazing. They last forever. They're small, which I like, but they fit into a regular socket. I hate when they make a small bulb that only fits into a specialized socket.
I think that was just a thing that they tried and now it didn't work, so they're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, because it was a pain, because you had to buy their, and no one wanted to go buy their fixture.
Right.
And people already had, as a reptile people, we already have 70 fixtures.
Like the fixture in my bedroom is one of those.
Really?
The fan.
Oh
And
yeah.
I hate it because it's the only light in my entire house. It's not a smart bulb.
Ugh.
Because
What a dumb bulb.
I know it has a remote, but I'm probably going to just, no, I can't. I even thought, well, I could just replace the switch with a smart switch. It's smart enough that if you turn the power off and turn it back on, it doesn't come on. You have to use the remote to turn it on.
Well, that's annoying.
I hate it.
But you know what doesn't do
But
that? VivTech bulbs.
It's 10-foot ceilings, and I'm not getting up on a ladder and changing that thing out again.
Oh, anyways, check out VivTech. Also, let's go with our Herps Reptile shows real quick. I'm sorry, I know I did it. I can't look.
Where did this come from?
I have no idea, but I'm catching myself doing it now. Now I just do it on purpose. This weekend, not this weekend, in 2 weekends, November 18th and November 19th, West Monroe, Louisiana. So if you're in North Louisiana, South Arkansas, Missouri, Texas, Mississippi, go over West Monroe. Robert maybe be there. If he's not, go see.
I'll be there.
If go see Robert and then go see our buddy. Oh my God, Douglas Ray White. I got Ray White and I couldn't remember the first name. Douglas Ray White. But you guys see Douglas Ray White when you see him. You'll see him. Look for the guy that looks like he should not be married to the woman he's married to. That's not Robert. Also, that's Robert.
That's also me.
But you'll see. I don't know how Doug got Natasha. I guess it's his sense of humor.
I don't know. She seems pretty annoyed by it most of the time.
That is true. That is true. Go by see them. Go by and see our friend Bull, who we had on, I don't know, episode whatever. I wonder if that's on there. Does he have Bull on there? I know I'm just playing on our website now. Go by and see Bull and congratulate them on their new baby, who I finally got to see this past weekend. He does not have Bull. Oh, man, you got to fix that, Nathan. It's whatever episode we interviewed in Pearland.
The first Pearland show.
The first Pearland show.
A year ago this weekend.
Yeah, because we interviewed Bull. We talked about the white trash gene. But I go congratulate them on their baby, their cute little baby. It's still like a bobblehead. It's just
James held her.
I did hold her for a picture, and then I gave her back because I don't do babies anymore. I raised mine. I'm good. Everybody keep their own babies.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get through these real quick. Austin, Texas, December 2nd, December 3rd. Herp Slidell, December 9th, December 10th. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Not going there. January 13th, January 14th. Longview, Texas, January 20th, January 21st. Conroe, Texas, January 27th, 28th, which is my birthday. Corpus Christi, Texas, February 24th, 25th. And then over to Baton Rouge, March 2nd and March 3rd, which is technically Gonzales, which someone who stayed in our Airbnb today, this past weekend.
Was the coolest place I've ever
It was a cool place. It had the fattest axolotl. It was a massive axolotl in our Airbnb, which I thought was just funny because of who was staying there. It had fake ivy in the shower, which is fine unless you're a fat guy like me. Then you bump into it every time you turn.
It had like a record player in the living room. When
Bob Marley.
I turned it on, it had Bob Marley on.
Yeah.
The whole house was called like art. She's like an artist retreat.
I never made it to the backyard.
Really?
No.
It had a trampoline, which is strategically not in any of the Airbnb stuff, so I don't think they're supposed to have them. And it also had an adult Connect 4 game.
I missed all that because I never walked into the backyard.
Yeah. If I sound patio, you could pull curtains all the way around it where nobody could see you if you were in the patio too.
They're saying you could have sex on the patio.
I assume so. I mean, you could either way.
Gotcha.
But then you could have it privately. Sure.
If I sound weird, it's because I spent all Saturday night in a casino, and you can still smoke at those places apparently, and I don't smoke, and my body does not appreciate being around all that smoke. By the way, when I say I spent all night in the casino, I didn't win jack shit. I lost $26. That was all I gambled. That was it.
And you lost some of somebody else's money.
I did lose somebody else's $100, but they let me gamble their $100.
Blackjack.
On blackjack, but I lost all that too. But yeah, so I'm gonna throw. Anyways, one of the other people staying in our Airbnb this weekend, which is in Lake Charles, which is 2 hours from Houston, called because she was at the venue and no one was there. Come to find out, she was at the venue in Gonzales, Louisiana, which is 3 hours past Lake Charles, and she's from Houston, so she drove 2 hours to Lake Charles, then the extra 3 hours to Baton Rouge to realize she was in the wrong place, and had to drive 3 hours back to Lake Charles that night to get back to the Airbnb.
Yep, she looked at the wrong Louisiana show and she looked for the address.
At least
she called and she's like, "Where's everybody at?" And Russell and I are like, "We're literally standing outside the venue and there's cars everywhere." And she's like, "This place is there's a bunch of horses out here. Where are you at?" "I'm at the whatever that's called, the
Lamar Dixon."
And I was like, "Lamar Dixon, that's Baton Rouge. Wait a minute. Turn around. We'll see you later tonight."
She did have, though, some of the nicest IJ blue tungstings I've ever seen. Because I saw them and I asked Sean, I was like, are those Northerns or IJs? He goes, no, they're IJs. Because I was gonna say they're ugly Northerns, but they were beautiful IJs.
I'm looking at an Airbnb in West Monroe, Louisiana.
Yeah.
The host's name is Scooter.
Scooter.
Which I've never told anyone this. That was my nickname when I was a kid.
Scooter?
Yep. Because I didn't crawl, I scooted on my butt.
I'm not calling you Scooter.
Nope. I don't. Nobody. One person left in this world alive calls.
I know I said I can't call Gonzo by his actual name. I'm not calling you Scooter though.
Yep.
Okay. We've wasted enough time.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get to our guest. I'm excited about this guest. So again, this is episode 190, which by the way, before we get to him, I did the math. Episode 200 should be around January 30th because I think we're going to take the week of Thanksgiving off and we're going to take the week of Christmas off. That should put episode 200 the week after my birthday. So I have not decided what we're doing yet for that. We may just do a bunch of call-ins from some of our previous 199 episodes.
That was Max's last.
That's true. We may leave Max out on this one. But yeah, so listen for that. Also, our giveaway. I apologize to our hosts that are doing the giveaway. I will sit down tonight after this on my computer and make a post for it. But we are going to give away a Reptile Gumbo shirt and some stickers thanks to Colossal Constrictors. I'll keep throwing them out there. Colossal Constrictors, they're amazing. Check them out. I got a wonderful snake that's in quarantine right now from them. Can't wait in a couple of years. It's going to make some awesome babies. So anyways, Colossal Constrictors, I promise the giveaway is coming this month because then they're doing a giveaway for December also. Well, 4 giveaways in December. They're doing one each week of December. So, all right, let's get to our guest. Ready, Robert?
Been ready. He's probably real ready.
He's probably ready. Again, 190 episodes. Everyone knows as you listen to this that I do Samboas because everybody makes fun of my little derpy worms. And I've done 189 of these things. I've never had a Samboa person on until now. Welcome, Rufus Darden of Rufus Darden Reptiles. How's it going, Rufus?
It's going great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. I know you because I'm in all the Samboa groups, so I've seen you in all of those. And then in 2000, well, let's see, I started the podcast in 2020. So it was 2019 Tinley, right before everything shut down and the world went to hell. Was the first time I saw Rufus in person, which I know at no point do you remember this at all. But that was also the same show where you won Dave Kaufman's like Snake of Rattle On Award for Snake because you're a Black Russian Samboa.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing that snake in person going, that's awesome. And now I own 2 thanks to our friend Jason Miller-Radovich.
Me too.
Yeah, you do as well, which is an awesome snake, which we will get into those as well. But give everybody a background of what you keep, and then we can go from there.
Okay. Well, it's pretty simple and straightforward right now. It is mostly just Samboas. And so the Kenyan Samboas, Russian Samboas, I also have some Indians and Arabians. Other than that, right now I just have a few odd and end things, blue tongue skink, a northern blue tongue. I adopted a redfoot tortoise, and I do have a pair of crawl keys as well. But
cool.
But other than that, the breeding part is just Samboas.
Yeah, I will have a blue tongue at some point. I've wanted one for forever, and I want a northern because I like the bigger and they're more colorful and they're pretty, and I want one. I want one once I have the space because it's going to be like a pet and it's going to get a nice big cage. And that's not to say that I don't like all my animals, but I mean, come on, I got like 40 something Samboas. They're not all going in nice big cages. They're Samboas. But I want to get a blue tongue. I have 2 redfoots. Robert, you have a redfoot, right?
I have 2.
You got 2 redfoots. Those are fun tortoises. And then I do have boas. I've got Colombians, and I do a little bit of breeding with Colombians. But
cool.
Samboas, I love Samboas, and I get made fun of by everybody because they just call them worms. Or people are like, why would you want to own that? You can never see it. My answer is always just take it out, and then you can see it. I don't understand the argument there. But you have the white whale of Samboas. You have Arabian Samboas, which for anybody that doesn't know what that is, I promise you do know what that is. If you've ever seen the dumbest picture of a snake on earth, it's the Arabian Samboa. Just picture this. You saw it. It looks like a sock puppet with googly eyes on top of its head. It's the goofiest looking Samboa, and I love them, and I want one. How are they to keep?
Hey, they're great. They're I'd say in terms of their temperament, very similar to the Kenyan Samboas. They're pretty docile. They will flinch every once in a while, if they're disturbed. Not really biters, don't musk a whole lot. so they're pretty easygoing in terms of interacting with them, that kind of thing. And also their husbandry requirements are similar to the Kenyans. They like a little bit hotter, maybe a little bit drier, but fairly straightforward and easy to keep.
Yeah, they are the one of two weird sand boas, and I guess one of two weird boas in general, because they lay eggs. They don't lay, I don't think, as weird an egg as like the Saharan sand boa that everybody's probably familiar with, because that's the one that people go to a reptile show and they find a sand boa for super cheap and they get it and they post it online. Go, look at my Kenyan. And everybody goes, that's not a Kenyan. Saharans are the ones that lay those weird eggs that hatch in like 7 to 14 days and are paper thin. Arabian eggs, I'm assuming, are different. It's a longer incubation, right? It
is. They're also very thin, fragile eggs. They don't look as thin as the Saharan eggs. However, they're super delicate. But you're right; they do take longer to incubate. Around 60 to 70 days is their typical incubation time.
Are you incubating those? Like, are you putting them in an incubator to stay warmer, or can you just like? It's not like colubrids where you just put them on a shelf and they'll hatch.
I've never tried the just putting them on a shelf method, but I have tried several other methods, and I've always used some type of incubator. And so I go around, 84 to 88 degrees with really high humidity. And so anyway, that's what I've tried in the past. I've tried various substrates, everything from sand to vermiculite, perlite, hatchite, and even substrate free. And all of those had some success. The sand, though, didn't work at all, but which you wouldn't suspect, But,
yeah.
Anyway,
do you find they dry out because they're so thin? Do they dry out easily?
They dry very easy, especially the most crucial period seems to be like your first couple of days. And what I've learned, I've had the best success if I'm there right when that female lays her eggs. That way, as soon as they're there, before they even start to sort of firm up, it's because when they're laid, they're kind of like jelly. But before they even firm up, you just go on ahead and move them into incubation, and they do a lot better that way.
Yeah, it's funny. Anytime a non-snake person sends me they're like, look at this goofy picture of a snake, and it's an Arabian sand boa. I'm like, I get it, they're goofy, but God, I want one. I guess the breeding is why they're not nearly as common in the pet trade, because I only know of 2 people that own them, and only one person's reproduced them, and that's you.
Yeah, I think even though they are fairly easy and straightforward to keep, the reproduction part, that's where the challenge comes in. For some people I know, they have trouble even just getting eggs. I never had so much trouble getting eggs. It's just once I get them, there's a challenge of getting them to hatch. And then after that, you even got these are really small babies. They can be as small as 2 grams. And so,
oh geez,
so like 2 to 5 gram babies. And so if they can't eat a red hot pink, you might be sliding mouse tails down them to start them off.
So they're smaller than a Kenyan sand boa baby
by far.
I'll say, because most of my Kenyans are 6 to 8, 9 grams. Although I did have one litter where they all weighed like 15 grams. They were massive babies. Mm-hmm. But man, that is crazy. 2 gram. I mean, that's like dealing with like corn snakes or smaller. Man. You also have another one that I'm hoping to breed soon. So when I talked about I went to Tinley in 2019, that's where I saw your table. That's also where I first picked up my Indian sand boas. There was one guy had a small little table with like 6 Indian sand boa babies on it, and I bought a pair back then. And I have to say, and I've said it before, they are the weirdest sand boa because they have a tail and it can wrap around you. And if you're not used to sand boas that do that, like if you're used to Kenyans,
I wouldn't know what to do if I picked
it. It weirds you the hell out. You're like, why is this thing holding on to me? How does it do that?
That Facebook user is Jason Miller-Radovich.
Oh, Miller-Radovich. Everybody wants Arabians, Miller-Radovich. We know. Everybody wants them. Only one person has them, and he's hoarding them all. It's the only reason I had him on this podcast, so I can keep tabs on them.
It's not like there's that many.
Right.
How big do Indians have? So this was a question I was wondering the other day, and it's something I couldn't really find online. I'm sure if I looked at my Samboa book back here somewhere, it probably says it. But how big do Indian Samboa females need to be? Because I kind of have an idea when I look at a female Kenyan, but I know Indians get bigger.
Now the Indians, I don't know. I've actually not bred Indians. I've bred, Russians and Arabians, Kenyans, but The Indians, I'm not sure what, if there's like a minimal weight requirement you'd want to breed. I do know it takes a bit longer to get them to age, maybe 4 years, something like that.
Yeah, that's I'm coming up on is year 4 now, and but I've kind of slow grown her. I know because they are the largest of the Samboas, getting almost like 3 foot, and they're like I said, just the tail throws me off because if you've ever held a Kenyan, I've always tell people that Samboas could like fall off the ground if it was possible. They don't hold on to anything, so to have a Samboa actually wrap its tail around your finger to hold on, it's an odd feeling, but they are such a cool snake. You don't have rough scales? Someone asked about rough scales. You don't have rough scales, do you?
I don't. I had a pair of those I traded off, a few years back, but so I've kept them, but I've never bred them.
That's one that I'm coming up on, I think, in a year or so to breed, and that's another cool one that I think should be seen more. But size is always the thing when it comes to breeding. Like I can look at a female Kenyan and go, yeah, it's ready to breed. Although I'll go to some shows and see like in a deli cup, someone's like proven breeder female, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, the thing's way smaller than the way I breed my females. So I guess maybe I just my Indians are probably ready. I'm probably just like, hey, go at it, see what happens. But let's try to see. So who's the hey y'all? See, people need to log in so I can see their names in the chat.
John Grant.
John Grant. Okay.
When I told him that Rufus was on, he was like, I'm getting on right now.
Oh yeah, another Sambo
because he's a Sambo guy too.
So what is I know my reason for it, but what is your reason for Samboas? Why Samboas? Because again, most people that own, like especially bigger snake people, will make fun of Samboa people because we don't own retics or berms or something. But hey, what's your reason?
Everybody's got their thing, right? I guess, but yeah, I guess when I first saw the Kenyan Samboas, it's probably about 25 years ago or so. In Texas, East Texas herp show there, and there was a guy. He had a pair of breeders there on the table, and some of the babies. And this is the first time I'd ever seen them, and they just looked really bizarre. And I'm kind of attracted to like very unique looking creatures, I guess. And so, they have those eyes that are just turned up on their head, and the pattern to me, having that orange kind of down the middle of the back instead of on the sides, I thought that was kind of inverted. Everything about them just looked like it was almost like there's something wrong with it. It was really bizarre. And so that really intrigued me. I said, I got to have a pair of those. And so anyway, that's kind of how it started. And then, back then there were only a couple of color morphs to work with. But I also was able to obtain some Dodomas, not long after I kind of got into it. And, I thought those are really attractive, the colors and everything. And I guess that's really what kind of kept me with those Samboas is I really like the different color patterns, the really vivid colors they have. And also they're easy to keep. I've kept several other species of reptiles throughout the years, but Sambo is just one of the easiest ones to keep. It fits my lifestyle pretty well.
They're definitely the most forgiving species I own. Like if a water bowl goes dry for some reason, they're good. They're fine. Like if my rainbow boa babies, if the water bowl goes dry, I just lost rainbow boa babies.
Yeah, they're pretty tough. I would think, and actually the Russian Samboas I think are probably the toughest out of all the ones that I keep. They're very tolerant of extreme temperatures. They're not very picky when it comes to food. They'll eat live, frozen, thawed, mice, rats, birds, baby chicks, lizards. So,
yeah. I like my black Russians. That's they're still young, so they're a ways away from breeding. But that's one of those ones that falls in that category that I find weird of things that you can drop to a temperature that seems way too low for them to make it. You've bred them? How low do you get yours when you brewmate them, or do you brewmate them?
I do. I always have. I like to tell people I don't know if you have to do it, but it is what works for me. And I get them down to at least 45 degrees. And so I've had them lower than that before. No ill effects, all the way down to into the 30s. But I think a good safe level is right about 40 to 45.
Did it feel unnatural the first time you did it?
It did. Yeah, it's a little bit stressful. And I think that's the thing with most people. We're used to keeping these animals warm all the time. But when you look at where they come from and you realize how rugged of an environment they live in, and when you look at what type of climate they're from, where they have 6 months of winter and 3 months of that being where the highs are maybe in the 30s. They have they're well suited and adapted for those colder temperatures. And I think it actually probably has a part, like exposing them to those cold temperatures has a part in sort of kicking off this whole cascade of hormones that help them with reproduction.
Yeah. That's our buddy Miller Radovich, where we got our Russians from, just said in the chat that his newborns are at about 50 degrees right now.
Yeah. And that's another thing if you get newborns, if they aren't eating, or if you just want to, if they aren't eating, you can just cool them down to 50 in a wine cooler. Some people just going ahead and put them in, don't even try to feed them. Maybe wait till their first shed, stick them in the cooler, a couple of months, bring them out, and they're ready to go.
I got rubber boas too. And the first year I put my rubber boas in the cooler. Katie's not here, but she would tell you I was a nervous wreck the entire time.
I'm here.
You're here. Yeah. I checked them on. Like at one point there was ice on the box and they're still crawling around in there. I'm like, what is wrong with you guys? Like this, I'm not used to this.
Well, Travis found one in the snow.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem was I did have last year when they came out of brumation, one of my males ate and then died shortly after. And that I was like, what the hell happened there? But I am debating whether to brumate them this year or just feed them because they just grow so damn slow. But right now they are hungry. It is crazy. I went to go take one out the other day and they never bite, but unless there's food. And I was like, you know what? Let me not reach hand first into this one right now. So I just took the hook and like tapped it and it comes out mouth flying around. And then I got it out. It was great. So I was like, all right, so you're hungry, even though I'll feed it like 3 or 4 pinkies at a time because they're nest raiders. But
right.
I thought about not putting them down this winter because they're not breeding. I'm not ready to breed them yet. They're still young. But
yeah, I'd say there's always just a little bit of risk when you put them down to that cold. It
just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Someone said a hook for rubber. Yes, I used a hook for a rubber bow because I don't feel like getting bit. I don't like getting bit.
That was John.
I figured it was John because he'll get bit by anything. He doesn't care.
No.
I don't think he has feeling in his hands.
It was hilarious this weekend that boa of yours bit Brittany.
Oh yeah.
And then he goes over and takes it to Joe and he tries to get it to bite him and it won't do anything.
Yeah, no, struck at me when I put it in the container to take it to the show. Struck at Brittany when she got it out. Joe booped it in the face with his finger. Nothing. Like, son of a bitch. Broke the snake. Anyways. But yeah, I'm a big fan of goofy fossorial snakes. I'm getting super excited. I'm getting calibars tomorrow in the mail.
Oh, sweet. Coming tomorrow, huh?
Yeah, our buddy, mine and Jason Miller Ravage's buddy Travis Wyman's was getting rid of his and offered him up. So we're splitting the group, and Miller Ravage is getting 3, and I'm getting 3, which means after this show, I've got to figure out where they're going because I haven't actually figured that out yet. But I promise, Travis, when you hear this, they'll have a home somewhere in this house. But I'm super excited about calibars because that's another one that no one really breeds that I think is a cool snake that should be in the hobby because it is so weird. But I also, where was it at? I got to pull it up. There's another snake that I have to add to my list of things that I want. I didn't know that I wanted it until someone posted in our group. Oh, Nathan posted it. It's I'm going to screw the, some sort of dwarf boa. I'm not going to try and pronounce the name in front. Some sort of Mexican dwarf boa.
Your daughter just scared the crap out of me.
Oh, she's going upstairs.
Hi, Joe.
But someone posted it over in our discussion group. It's the Oaxacan? Oaxacan. Okay. That makes sense. Oaxacan dwarf boa.
And Oaxaca does not sound anything like it's spelled.
No, not at all. It's like looking at words in Louisiana.
Yeah.
No, this thing looks amazing. It's like this gray. It's almost like if you took a file snake and a rubber boa and mixed it together. I need this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool looking.
And it probably only eats like some lizard found in Mexico, and I'll never get it to eat in captivity. But I want it, and now I'm adding it to my list of weird things that live underground that I need. But yes. I'm trying to see. Someone said rubber boas never bite. That is not true. That is not true. If they think you're a mouse, they 100% will bite you.
Both of those comments, all 3 of those comments are Jason's. No.
I'm trying to like read all the comments. So he said agreed about cooling, setting them for better reproduction. Same with his rubbers and rosies, helps the sperm production in males. Yeah, I knew that. But it just doesn't feel right for a snake that you keep, especially with the Russians, for a snake that you keep at 90 degrees to then go, hey, it's 45 degrees.
Yeah, but that's what happens in their natural environment, you know. So they have really hot summers and really cold winters, though.
Think about here.
Yeah.
Right now, it was in the 40s last week, and today it was 87.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Friday the high's like 50. So you think about what like our Speckle Kings and stuff go through.
Yeah. And they'll come out like if that's a weird thing about those things. Like, well, like when Travis found that rubber boat coming out, that was probably a warm day, even though it was snow.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come out on those warm days, even if there's still snow.
Russell told me that his sulcatas would come out when it snowed a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And then it was warm. Like it wasn't really warm, but the sun was out. He opened the door on their thing and they came out and laid in the sun.
Yeah.
For a little while. They didn't stay long, but they came out and absorbed some UV and then went back in their barn.
Yeah.
He said they were moving pretty slow.
You're on ice. Our buddy JT asked if you keep rosy boas. I know you didn't mention them earlier.
I don't keep rosies. No, I've never had those. Yeah.
I do have some of those too. I'm thinking about getting more rosies, although that's a snake that bites. Every baby that I've ever had born.
Everyone I've ever handled has bitten me.
Yeah, everyone that's ever. I mean, they eat really well once you get them started. I still have some babies I'm trying to get started, but so of all the Samboas you've kept, what is your favorite?
Oh, it's tough. Probably the Russians, I think. I might tell you something different tomorrow. I don't know. I like them all, but I guess we've been talking about Russians. I'm thinking about them. I do like them. I could say better than keeping Arabians. And yeah, really, I guess overall Russians.
Do you have are you really like black Russians, or are you across the board, any of them?
I really appreciate all the different sort of color phases and patterns, but I think that super black, that's what I really like the most.
Yeah, that's what both mine and Robert's are, man. It is so cool, especially like in a day where everybody like loves Mexican king snakes. And I'm like, yeah, but this thing's so much cooler. It doesn't get as big.
There's literally one observation of a Oaxacan boa on
iNaturalist.
One.
It's probably that picture that got posted.
I'm trying to get it to pull up.
Okay, so you're saying is I probably can't get one.
Probably not.
Okay, well that sucks. I want one. Now I want it even more. Well, maybe not. It's right below Arabian Samboas. God, that's such a cool looking snake.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. Okay. Anyways, well, Hawkins, I need that. So I was looking up. I had pulled up your Morph Market earlier because I go on Morph. I have no money, so I can't buy anything on Morph Market now. But every now and then I go on there. The genetics again are not like ball python. People look at it and they go, oh, whatever. But there's a lot of cool genetics I think in like Kenyans right now that, and then there's some that don't make sense. How do you pronounce? I'm gonna say it without saying the name of it. The locale of Kenyan that produces stripes. How do you pronounce that?
Rufescens.
Rufescens. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that, and then I've also heard it with like a hard C, Rufescens. And so I never know actually what's right.
Well, I don't claim to know that I'm right. I just that is the way I've always said it, is Rufescens. I'm not sure if I've ever actually looked it up or not.
That's a weird gene because like it doesn't work in any of the normal ways that you would think. Because I've had people tell me they've bred, a striped one to a normal and then got all stripes. And then people breed stripes to a normal and get like half stripes. And I've heard some on occasion breed stripes to a normal and get no stripes. I'm like, well, how the hell does that work? Like what is that gene doing? But
yeah, I'm not sure, especially if you're not getting any stripes at all. If you're getting some stripes in that first generation, you suspect it's some sort of dominance,
It's I'm a fan of stripes up, which is one reason I like paint. Paint is another one. Mm-hmm. I know you have that, but the paint gene I think in Samboas is awesome. And I'm a paint over splatter person. I'm not a huge splatter fan, but I love that thick stripe. And I was looking at some of the ones you have on Morph Market, and I need money is what I need, is what I'm realizing. That's my problem right now is I'm
Yeah, the paint's great, especially for putting it in with other combos and everything. It's really cool.
So my whole reason I love sandboas, that's my whole reason. But one of the big reasons, I grew up a Beetlejuice fan, and they remind me of the sandworms from Beetlejuice. Every time I see the black and white striped ones, whenever I sell Anery ones to someone, I always reference that movie. And I realize I'm getting older now, so it's less people are getting the reference now is my problem. It's because not everybody's seeing Beetlejuice.
Right.
But
there'll be a new one coming out next year.
That's true. They are making a sequel, which I don't know how you do that. How do you bring someone in who is definitely aged, but their character is not supposed to age?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's definitely older now.
Yeah, but he looked oldish. I mean, I think they'll be fine.
He's also
he said when he read like 6 scripts before he said, okay, that one's good, because they were going to ruin it with the first 5.
I could see that. He's the only reason the new Flash movie was any good.
I haven't seen it.
He's the only. You can just fast forward to his scenes.
Gotcha.
The rest of it sucks. Michael Keaton is amazing.
Yeah.
But anyways,
yeah, he couldn't have made Beetlejuice without him. Except the part 2.
Yeah, and then
I told you we'd end up talking about pop culture at some point tonight. Here we are.
It's all right.
So how do you house most of your sandboas? Because I know housing is always people, but how do you house most of your sandboas?
Most of the ones I have are in just various types of rack systems.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was I feel like it's one of the snakes where racks work really great for sandboas.
I think so. Some display cages that would work fine for them, I think, but where it seems to work best, or where the racks seem to work best, is when they're babies, especially.
Yeah. There's a safety. I mean, they feel safe. They eat better and something like that.
I think so. It's probably more natural in some ways. I know it's not natural completely, but if you think about a small snake when it's born, the more they're exposed, the more they're not going to be out traveling around. They get picked off by birds and lizards and things like that. And so if they can find a nice dark warm place to stay after they've eaten, they're gonna stay there, until they get hungry again.
Yeah, why would they move?
Right. I mean, no chance, or there's no reason for them to risk losing their lives, moving around and trolling around when they're that small.
Yeah, and they're spending most of their life covered in the ground. There's that one story, I think it's in the Sambo book, where it talks about one that was eating a bird and it may have fallen out of a tree. And I'm like, okay, well, one weird Sambo climbed up the tree and grabbed that bird, but that does not make them an arboreal snake. So I'm like, you don't need a 20 tall tank for them all the time. Don't be wrong, they may climb, but that is not going to be the bulk of their time. That is, I guess that's JT. Yeah, my favorite rack is anything that holds the V15, V18, V35 S tubs, because it kind of works across the board. I found for Samboas from baby to adult.
Yeah, those are good.
Although he has the pencil one, no one makes the pencil tub racks anymore.
Mm-mm.
Do you make pencil? Oh, it's right.
Yeah, do a little Kluber hatchling rack.
That's true. You do have pencil tub racks.
Yeah,
it's just so small.
It is, but
it would work for apparently Arabian Samboas because they come out super small. But so what are you working on breeding wise right now? What is the direction you're going with your Samboas and all?
Well, I guess it depends on the species we're looking at, but the Arabians, I'm just trying to get them to reproduce, period. So there's the goal there, Now with the Russians, I do have a few projects with the albinos, the golden albinos. Those are relatively new. There's only a few of those out there. I've never bred, 2 of those together just to see what happens. I suspect you'd get all albinos of some type. So anyway, that's a project that I'm working with the Russians right now, is those golden albinos. Also always trying to improve the super blacks.
Yeah.
And then on the Kenyan side of things, I have several projects. One that I'm sure a lot of people have going is like, your paradox paints of different types, paradox albino paints, paradox snow paints. I'm trying to do that with a little bit of rufescens in there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've seen the Rufescens paints. Some of those come out. I just call them paint stripes. I don't know what else to call them, but they have that broad stripe like a paint, but it's kind of has a fuzzy border. You just have a different look to them, and it's what I believe is probably the expression of the stripe and the paint, at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to do that, but with the Paradox albino in there as well.
Yeah, the Paradox and Sambo is neat. The two different albinos are really cool, and I know people do it. I'm not a fan of when people mix the two albinos just because it makes things confusing later on, and I'm just like, whatever. But I know some people do. They mix them and they'll make it, but it's not my thing.
I think it's coming. I think that a lot of people are. I know a lot of people are doing it. I think that's just going to be the way it goes.
It's going to be tricky. People buying them, especially buying them secondhand or something, because you can't always see the Paradox in like. I know I've seen some pictures where you can kind of see slightly darker white spots on some of the albinos, but like you can't really see the Paradox like you can in pure Paradox albino. And for us, Paradox is, for anybody listening, if you breed Paradox and a lot of other stuff, like, it's a crapshoot, like in ball pythons, right? It's a crapshoot. If it's Paradox, it's not genetic. It's, enjoy your.
It's a true Paradox.
Yeah, enjoy your weird looking snake. But for us, it's Paradox, but it doesn't feel like it fits the definition of Paradox.
Well, it's that Paradox albino. It's one thing, it's just one one recessive trait, and it just happens to be on a different allele than the albino. Yeah.
But it feels weird because, like I said, most people when they hear Paradox, they think an animal with weird, albino animal with weird spots. It is an albino animal with weird spots, but it's reproducible. We can make more of them, and so I really like I like both. I like Paradox albino because if anybody's ever seen one, it's the big splotches of black or brown on an orange snake. But I really like when you mix it with the stripe, because then you get just a ton of speckling. You don't get the giant blotches. You get a ton of speckling all over the body. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it kind of breaks it up. I like that too.
Yeah, and I like one that's got a lot of pattern. I know if anybody that follows Sambo's, Pamela's got a couple that are amazing, that have some really good speckling.
Yeah.
And I got one of her paints. I was lucky enough to win. She always does like giveaways. I was lucky enough to win a paint from her like 2 years ago. And so I'm raising up some paints, one from her and one from, I forgot where I got the other one from. Anyways, there's only like 4 people I buy snakes from, and the Sambo is from. So you are on my list, Rufus. I'm just waiting for the day that you can sell Arabians.
If I can help you, just let me know.
John Grant says he wants to know where he gets on the list for Russians.
John, for Arabians.
John,
you don't get on the list for Arabians.
Nope.
You can just sit there. And then whenever I can finally get Arabians, and then you can finally get Arabians. You have to wait.
He's going to go on a mission to find them now, and with all his contacts.
He can try.
I know. It'd be impossible.
Good luck on finding them.
He could get a Oaxacan probably before that.
Why is it so hard to get it? I mean, I assume it's location. No one goes there.
Yeah, I don't know. I've not really looked in depth at trying to get them imported, so I'm not sure what the challenges are. But there must be some sort of hold up there, I guess.
I mean, because you can get Saharans in by the truckloads, but you never see Arabians. And as much as like those pictures of them float around, because everybody loves the goofy eyes on top of the head, you would think that would drive someone to bring them in and try and sell them, but that hasn't done anything either.
No, I don't know if anyone else might know, any of your audience maybe. I don't know why they haven't been imported yet, unless they're do they require CITES permit maybe?
I didn't know. That could be true. I don't know. That's cool. And JTS, if you do anything with Saharans, we talked about that earlier. You don't have Saharans.
I don't. They're very intriguing animals, like you had mentioned earlier too. The reduced pattern ones, I really like them. But I've not worked with them.
I like the idea of breeding them just to see the weird egg they produce.
Yeah,
because it's it's like paper thin, and you only incubate it for a week or two, which is just so weird. But again, like with the Arabians, I imagine it dries out very quickly if you don't keep it humid.
I would think. I mean, with the Arabians, you've got to keep it as about as humid as you can without them getting wet.
And that's tricky.
Very tricky. If they get wet, they go downhill quick.
Ugh. So that's another problem with the Arabians is, again, I'm waiting. I mean, the Saharans. I'm waiting on a captive bred Saharan baby, but the problem is you can import them for almost nothing. So no one's really breeding. No one wants to go through that problem of trying to breed them and then deal with those eggs. And so,
and I wonder looking back if that's part of kind of what happened with the Arabians. They were imported there for a while, and a few of us bred them then, but I just don't think there was that much, a drive, I guess, incentive for people to breed them at that point because they were still coming into the country.
And they just probably got overshadowed by a ton of other snakes that, one, are far more popular either because they're easier to breed or because of all the different colors and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
I think one that I like seeing every now and then, though, is the rough scales, which I have. I'm looking for those. I think those need to be bigger because those have a cool like viper look to them. They look like a little saw scale viper or something. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. So I love Samboas. I think they're cool. I think more people should think they're cool.
Yeah. Hey, they're great little snakes.
They are.
You sell them when you take them to shows?
I sell tons of them,
especially when you bring the adults.
Yes, that is. I found that makes it much easier, and you have some at shows too.
Yeah, I think it helps to bring the adults, not just from selling, but education. Just educating the general public. People come by all the time. They want to know, hey, what does it look like when it's an adult? What's an adult female look like? The male, so on. So yeah, for that reason, I like to bring some mature adults along and have at the table, so everyone can kind of see what they're getting into.
Well, and some people walk by and I'll have Samboas and they go, "Boa, these get big." I'm like, no. Mm-hmm. Like these are very small, mm-hmm. and then it's very easy because someone wants to know how big they get, and they're from another sexually dimorphic. Your females are much bigger than your males, and so when you can show someone a male and they go, "Oh wow, that's as big as it's going to get," it's a really good selling point.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes, yeah.
Even though a female, when we say big, is not big.
No.
Like if someone's held an adult ball python, that's like 3 times the size of a female Samboa, or at least of a Kenyan. But yeah, and then again, the argument for people is always, well, you never get to see them. I'm like, you see things when you take them out. When you hold them,
when you interact with them is when you see them. I just look at them like I appreciate all types of snakes, and so like think about like a green tree python. I guess you could say about it, like, well, you can't hold it, but you can look at it like a goldfish. And if that's your thing, great. You get a green tree python and enjoy just staring at it. But if you like to interact with a snake that is also beautiful, then that's where the Samboas come in, I think.
And they got that cool shovel head. It's like the first thing people know. They go, that head looks weird. I was like, it's a shovel. It's made to dig in the sand. I mean, they are perfectly designed for where they live. They are short and fat. And I always tell them, it's a sausage. They're short and fat, but it's all muscle. And it's all muscle if you've ever surprised one and seen how fast they can strike from underneath the bedding.
Yes, they can.
It is insane how quick they are.
And grab your finger and wrap up.
That is why I keep it. And JT's gonna laugh at me, but I always have a cage hook just so I can like tap it. So it's like, wake up before I reach in there and grab you. Because, they can turn quick.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good, especially when you get the small parts of your fingers. Like, I get they're small, but those teeth are sharp. Do you find their strike? Like, it's hard to explain to someone how fast their strike is.
Yeah, I think I could see where people would underestimate them, just looking at them thinking, oh, that can't do much damage. But, yeah, they have a very quick, hard strike,
Like a gaboon viper. They look like the fat, slow snake, and it's one of the fastest strikes that there is.
Yeah, when the one move that counts, all you got to be able to do is catch something. That's all.
Yeah.
So, like I said, to me, it's such a cool snake, and for people that are getting their first snake, I find I get the babies are very small, but once they hit about a year, it's kind of like how I feel at corn snakes. I think corn snakes are great once they hit about a year, but Samboas, the great thing about them as babies, they're small and slow moving. So I think for small kids, they're a great way to get into it. And
Yeah.
I don't know a better beginner snake to me. People will say ball python, but we all know some of the issues with keeping a ball python.
I mean, I guess it's different for everyone, but I've had a lot of people that buy from me in the past that, they really weren't into snakes. They were interested in them, but they're a little bit more reserved about getting a snake. And I think they just find the sand boa is a little bit less intimidating.
Yeah.
Maybe because of that look that they
That
have.
face,
And,
those big eyes.
yeah. So like as a beginner snake, I think it can be really, as long as the, person's educated about what they need. I think sand boas are great for beginners. And, like I said, they just usually don't find them very intimidating.
Yeah, man. Like it's much easier, I found, talking moms into snakes if it's a sand boa versus some of the other stuff, because they don't have that triangular shaped head of like boa constrictors or ball pythons.
Yeah.
And everybody, a lot of people grow up that triangle shaped head being the fear part of a snake. You always hear if it's a triangle shaped head, it's venomous. And even if they know that a python or a boa, like a boa constrictor, is not venomous, I think seeing that scares them. And then you look at a sand boa that just has no neck. It just goes from body to nose. It's, it's a lot less scary.
Yeah, very non-threatening look to them, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jason Miller, when pulling newborn Russians out of the mom's cage this summer, one of the tiny babies grabbed onto and constricted around his son's finger. And it took a few minutes to realize it wasn't edible and then released. Which is different than someone like people that buy hog noses, right? That's another one that I don't think is a great beginner pet, but you see them sold as a beginner pet. A hog nose bites onto you thinking you're food. There's a part in its brain that doesn't work. It doesn't turn off and think that it's not food, and it will try to eat your finger all the way down to your elbow if it wants to. So again, sand boas trump other snakes. They're better snakes. Everybody should buy sand boas.
Of course.
Yeah. And you can fit more of them in your house than you can a retic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Much better than a retic.
Yeah, just a few more.
just a few.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to go through a couple of the genes with some of the sand boas, just for me that's not used to them, because I know a lot of people are used to anery and normal, because for a long time that was kind of what you had. It was sand boas are either black and white or orange and black, and those are your two options. But just a couple of things like we talked about paint gives you that thick border, and paint is a recessive trait. What about the I've got one that's GX paint, but you've got some GX paint stuff available. So what's the GX part?
Yeah, the GX is like an abbreviation for GeneX, and it's if you're looking at just a pure GeneX animal, it'll have a reduced pattern and a very reduced head pattern, or no head pattern. At times, like no. One thing I guess that's very characteristic of all the GeneX is they won't have any of the postocular stripes. No eye bars. So if I'm not sure if you're familiar with dodomas, but they will they look similar to dodomas. So anyway, that's the GeneX. You can think of it as like a mutation that is sort of a pattern reducer, and you can mix that with other morphs as well. And so the GeneX paint is just the paint where you get that nice clean head.
Is it recessive like paint?
Not like paint, but yes. So I would say the best way to describe it is, it's closest to acting like a recessive. I guess the person that first produced paints and GeneX paints was Jeff Holloway. And the way he describes it is like, it acts like recessive, but it's not straight recessive. And so here's what he means by that. And what I've observed that kind of aligns with that is that if it's straight recessive, like albino, breed albino to albino, you're going to get all albinos, right? Breed GeneX to GeneX, you might not get all GeneX.
So it's kind of like how stripe is confusing in them as well.
Yeah.
You won't always get the numbers you think.
No, but however, I don't think it's, in giving people an idea of how it works to say it's recessive. I mean, it is along those lines. It's gotcha. The numbers come out very close.
I do have a Dodoma, and you definitely notice the head is very similar. That nice clean head.
Yeah.
But the Dodomas are just so pretty. That's one thing with Sambos. You have the genetics, and then you also have some like the locale stuff. Like technically, Stripe is a locale version of Samboa. The Rufescens is kind of a locale of the Kenyan Samboa, and then Dodoma is also a locale. But Dodoma, is that the same thing as fire?
Well, I'm not sure what is fire.
I think there's one that's fire, and it's just or maybe it's not
Flame.
fire. Flame.
Flame. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure what flame might be now, I guess, but years ago, so 20-something years ago, when you would go to buy Dodomas, those were flame. Like the Barkers, they originally called them flames.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so they used that term flames, and then there was a transition over to kind of rebranding those as Dodomas. I think, there may be more to the story than what I've got, but I think there were two things at least going on there. Dave Barker, Dave and Tracy, they found out later where those flames that they originally had imported, that they were from Dodoma, Tanzania. And so, maybe they thought it was more accurate to call them Dodomas because of that, locale. But also at the time, I remember like on King Snake Classifieds, they were, you would see someone would take a normal that was real bright orange and they would call it a flame. And so what happened is there were more people selling flames that weren't Dodomas. So then I think that's where that distinction started to be made. People just started going, oh, okay, all right, well if that's flames, well, these are Dodomas. And so I think that's kind of my take on it, on where the flames, that name was used.
Yeah.
However, since then I've heard it used in other contexts, and I'm not real sure, I'm not real sure what it's used for now.
Our buddy JT in the chat said he's heard nuclear for Kenyans and then cow flame for Dodomas. Which I know both are bright orange, but
nuclear, to my knowledge, more of a line bred thing where they're just breeding really nice normals together. That's how the nuclears came about. And cow flames, those, I guess the best thing to do there, you reference the Sandboa book.
Yeah.
And, they came from Warren Treacher. He kind of gives his take on the cow flame and why he named it cow flame and that kind of thing.
I can definitely tell though that my Dodoma it is much brighter. Like that orange is so much brighter than like some of my brighter Kenyans, just plain Kenyans. It glows because it kind of, whereas normally like the dark colors bleed into lighter colors. The Dodoma, it's weird. It's almost like the orange bleeds into the darker pattern. So it looks like it kind of glows from the orange.
Yeah, it's the great thing about those is like they start off, as babies. They're just a very pale color, maybe like a little orange or yellowish orange stripe down the back. But then they just get brighter with age. They just get better with age.
Yeah.
Kind of, this would be in contrast to what you see in like a lot of ball pythons. Ball pythons look killer as babies, but then they, not that great as they age. Mm-hmm. And Dodomas, it's, it's the opposite. And they stay clean. That pattern doesn't get that speckling in it, or that, that orange doesn't get the gray speckling in it.
Yeah. It's got to be tricky to sell the babies for Dodoma because then you have to have an adult. That's where having an adult at a show goes, look, this thing will look like this. I promise at some point.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of tough if you're like, it looks like an anery with a little yellow stripe, but trust me, it's going to be bright orange in a year.
Yeah, not lying to you. That's because that's another thing with just Kenyans. Like they are so variable from some. I've got some that are yellow and brown.
Yeah. Some
that are orange and black and everything in between. There's a ton of variability in just the normal coloration.
There's a lot of variability. And I almost think, there's a lot of work that still can be done with there's a lot of things out there that we see and people just aren't working with it. And we just don't know what it is and how it's inherited.
Yeah. I think that I think everybody works towards orange, But I think if more people, some people started working towards yellow, you could end up with a very yellow sand boa. Because I've got some that are pretty yellow, but they're yellow with a lot of muted black and kind of mixed into it, and so they're not as clean.
Yeah. I've always wondered, like, you're talking about the paradox albinos earlier, and some of those, they're kind of like white and orange with the black paradoxing, but I've had a few and seen others that people have had that they have that real greenish look. And so there'll be the white and it kind of like there's white and green in there. And, I've not ever taken the time to work with that extensively, but, I just wonder about that. Is that reproducible? Can you enhance that? Can you get a green sand boa? That'd be pretty neat.
That'd be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to read some of the things. Oh, JD said canary is what he's heard the yellow line's called.
Yeah, canary. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely a wide. And like I said, they're not all orange and black. I think a lot of people like orange and black, but I have a lot of that are orange and brown splotches. So I think there's a lot of work that can be done through line breeding some of these things and cleaning up some of them. And I think that's a great thing about like mixing. It maybe not so much to do with the GX into stuff. Cleaning it up some may help some in some of these situations. Miller Adams says he would definitely take a green sand boa. I think everybody would be on board for a green sand boa.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
So I wanted to pull up the question that we asked this week on our Facebook. So I got a question from you this week, and we got a lot of answers and like in-depth answers. So let's go through some of these. Huh?
I was impressed.
Yeah, we'll go through some of these, and then we'll discuss them as well. But the question was, from animal husbandry and reproduction to genetics and morphs to aspects of business, how can we keep differing beliefs about these areas from becoming divisive within our herpetoculture community? That's crazy. I don't think we're divisive. We never argue.
I was actually going to comment on there and say, we're not divisive. You're all wrong.
So let's go through some of these. Like I said, most of these answers were pretty in-depth answers and pretty good. Ash Galehouse said, I think ego and reactivity are the two big issues influencing divisiveness in the community. We all have the ability to learn and educate equally. As soon as we all realize we don't, in fact, know everything, speak for yourself. I'm good. I know everything. That we all have room to improve and learn. Then we can begin being proactive. And by proactive, she means working to learn more, realizing age-old practices may no longer be acceptable or the standard, and making conscious efforts to do better for their animals and the hobby in general. I agree. Now, with that said, I don't always think because something is a new practice that it makes it better than an age-old practice.
I agree.
Better, or I should say, it doesn't make it worse or better. I think in a lot of situations, what we've done for 30 years works, and what we've done for 5 years works, and they can both work at the same time equally.
Yes.
We talked about racks with sand boas, and that's always a big discussion. People racks cages, but
sure,
they work. Like they work, and they work just fine. But I also agree that maybe a retic probably doesn't need to go in a rack. They're a very active animal. They like to move around a lot.
Maybe babies.
Yeah, but
yeah,
wedging a big one into some of the smaller tubs that I've seen them do, it may not be the best. But my sand boas are perfectly happy sitting on the heat, just sitting there with the head poked right above the aspen, waiting for a mouse to come by, and just staying there. So, but I agree. That's with them. Jamie Lee Kozler said, this is a long one, I honestly don't think they can completely do away with disagreements. There will always be egos and emotions that get in the way. I do want to stop there. I don't think we need to get away from disagreements. I think disagreements are how we grow as a hobby and grow in anything. We just got to get away from argumentative disagreements.
Yeah, when we start getting personal and cursing each other and taking it to that level instead of actually having an intellectual debate.
Well, yeah, just because someone has a different opinion than you, don't take it as a personal attack.
Right.
Which I think is a big problem.
Big problem. And that's in a lot of things.
It's not just the hobby. That's human nature at this point, unfortunately. Jamie Lee also said, that doesn't mean we stop trying. It just means that we don't always that we won't always be able to come to an understanding, and we can't let that discourage us as individuals. We can just continue to educate based on fact rather than opinion or feelings. Stop trying to educate based on pure feeling, and control the way we do it as best as we can. Also, being open to other people's thoughts and suggestions can help. And then our buddy Nathan Holcomb, who, again, go check out our website, thereptilegumbopodcast.com, because Nathan Holcomb is awesome, and he did that all on his own because he's great. So I will definitely read his comment because I want him to keep doing my website. Nathan said, by growing up and realizing that people have differing opinions, realizing that it is their business and people should have the right to run it the way they want. It is all about majority. For example, if the breeder wants a spider morph ball python and 90% of the ball python keepers disagree with the morph and its effects, then simply let them get too many or wait for them to realize that it will not sell. And that he believes to each their own. Rufus, what's your opinion so far? How do you feel about the just letting people do what they do?
So like, yeah, in reference to the question, I think, just having maybe awareness and respect on people having different entry points into our hobby,
Yeah.
For example, I may see things a certain way because my entry point was, as a kid, growing up in a rural area, being in the woods, catching snakes, catching salamanders and lizards, and just, learning about their behaviors from the time I was a kid. And that just kind of grew and has evolved over time. But if I'm talking to someone that just got into this hobby 3 months ago because they saw a snake that they thought looked cool on Instagram, and they never even maybe they never even had a pet cat or a dog. I mean, they're coming from a completely different place, And so I think just when people make some comments or things that seem very different than your view, I think it's important to look at, well, where are the other people coming from, and just try to respect where they're coming from.
Yeah. Well, and I think a hard thing for a lot of people in the hobby, we've talked about before, is a large part of the reptile hobby are not people, right? They're not good at talking to other people. They're not the most socially, they're very socially awkward. A lot of reptile people are very socially awkward. And so when it comes to disagreements get blown out, I think, really quick sometimes because they want to get their point across. And sometimes they just got to pump the brakes, and you've got to learn to educate without upsetting somebody. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that you can try, and then you're just not going to get through to them. Like, it happens, and you have to just move on from that. But like someone who just gets in the hobby and they get a whatever because, again, they did see it online and it was pretty and it shined in the sun and they bought it, and now they don't know what's going on. You can help them, you can educate them, and not call them stupid right away. Right? Don't get me wrong, I call lots of people stupid, but they usually have earned it by the time I've called them stupid. Mostly my students, but yeah, it's definitely a idea of trying to educate them, because there are a lot of people. Look, as our hobby, we should want people to get into our hobby.
Yeah.
We should not want to keep it ours and be like, no, you can't be in it. We should want every suburban mom to buy their kid a bearded dragon, a leopard gecko, a snake, or whatever, because it does nothing but help us. Right? That gets us away from that 1990s picture of the guy covered in tattoos and piercings being the reptile guy, and makes it more like us, where we don't look like your typical reptile. Well,
right,
we do look like the typical reptile guy, but not the typical reptile guy that most people think when they think reptile.
Most people wouldn't meet like Jim Sargent.
Yeah, Jim. Yeah,
and be like, that's a reptile guy.
Yeah, clean cut.
Yeah,
really, because like that's not what you would expect.
And or like Jerry Salmon. You know, guys like that. And they are reptile
or hell,
guys.
Kabilka. There's no way you meet Kabilka outside of his reptile room and go, that's a reptile guy, right? He doesn't look like it,
right?
So it's all in how you talk to people. Going through some of the other ones, this was one that I would like to get y'all's opinion on this one, because this is one I have opinions on this one. But Catherine R. Frank said, create a reptile humane society and set ethical standards for enclosure sizes and husbandry at the species level. Rufus, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think that would be, I respect the thought behind it, but I think it would be difficult to do and to kind of implement, police, that type of thing. So I don't think necessarily the root of the thought or the intent of the thought is not bad, but actually putting it into practice would probably be difficult.
Yeah, that's
Not
where
possible.
I understand the idea of policing ourselves, but that feels like policing ourselves. Like that's not that's a little much. And look, there's humane societies for dogs, and they're treated like shit all the time. Like it doesn't save the animals completely. Like, and there's tons of people that take care of dogs properly, and it may not be the way other people agree with it, but then there's people that are breeders who are registered breeders who probably don't take care of them the way you think a dog should be taken care of.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you go to look at I think where it would become difficult is say if there was a minimum, space requirement for a snake, and let's say that snake's not arboreal, maybe it stays on the ground all the time, and what if you didn't have that minimum requirement, but you put things inside of that cage that increased the surface area of the floor space there, and it gave it that room to roam, that extra room to roam. If they're short a few inches on space, but they compensate in that way, is that okay? Is it not okay? You see where it kind of gets tricky?
Yeah. Putting these firm laws into place, I don't think fix the problem. But I understand the feeling behind it. Why? I mean, you've seen in Europe where you've seen some of if you ever watch any of the videos of reptile shows in Europe, there's minimum sizes to the display that they can be in. Our American way of putting them in deli cups, they'll flay you alive over there if you do that. Like it has to be in a large enclosure. I forget what it is, but it's like one snake in a 20-gallon tank for sale at an expo. Like not anyways, it's
not permanent housing.
Yeah, it's a weird thing over there. And I get the idea that you feel like the animal should be humane, but look, I think most of us can agree if a snake is in a deli cup, appropriately sized deli cup for 3 days for a show, it's probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times does that snake, if it was wild, sit in the nook of a tree or in a hole for 3 or 4 days waiting to shed or waiting for food or waiting for the right temperature and not move? Right? So I get where Catherine's coming from, but I think we should police ourselves within the hobby by understanding the right ways to do things versus actually passing laws where we have to call police to police ourselves. Erica McVeigh said, push unfollow on some people's posts, and that will stop a lot of the fire fueling. And that was a thing over again in a lot of these social media. It definitely has helped. It has helped the hobby, but it's definitely hurt not just the hobby. Social media has hurt humanity, I think, as a whole.
I agree.
Sometimes maybe you should just stop reading, especially if you're one of those people that do get bothered by reading other people's stuff. Like if you can't just read it and move on and be fine, then yeah.
Well, like today, just an example. I have a friend who owns a crime scene cleanup business. Okay. He had a crime scene he was cleaning up. He posted a picture of himself in it. You can't see anything other than all the cleaner on the floor because it foams up.
Yeah.
And he said it was a suicide. Well, somebody asked, was it a GSW or a hanging? And this lady comments, it's like 20 comments in. She's like, that's a very triggering thing for me, and I don't want to see that. You shouldn't ask questions like that. And I commented, and I was like, ma'am, it's not our job to police your triggers. And if you knew that was going to trigger you, why are you reading the comments?
Why are you in the comments? Scroll.
Why are you in the comments on this post?
On social media, you're allowed to keep scrolling.
Feels like you were just looking for something to complain about. And that's everything nowadays.
Yeah. Let's get through a couple more of these. My dad said, he commented, unfortunately, it would take a complete rework of human nature to keep differing opinions from being divisive, especially with the advent of social media and the internet in general. While we are at the top of the food chain, we are near the bottom of the common sense chain. This is what happens when the biggest competition is to win the football game or to prove that I keep my reptiles in a better rack than you do, as opposed to the animal kingdom where the greatest competition is for life. We do have to, I'm sure there are some examples where I can find animals where do it, but animals don't really try to go, hey, I'm better than you, by just being better than you. Like it's not, it's kind of a human thing. Like, hey, I've got to prove that I'm better than you so I can feel better about being who I am. I like Danielle's answer. We can be grown ass adults about differences instead of deciding that someone else's opinion is a personal slight. Yeah, I like that one. Going through some of the Jason Creekmore said delete all Facebook groups. This is the one you comment on, Graham Battison's.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the internet has a huge part to play. It's used to be a hobby where truly passionate people had to make a real effort to learn and to learn and meet others. Now you have a zillion people with an opinion they can throw in at the drop of a hat, ranging from people with zero experience giving husbandry advice, which we've all seen in groups. That happens all the time. Again, we go back to that person who saw a pretty snake online, went to a show, picked it up, and then now they're the snake expert in whatever group they joined on Facebook. People with zero passion using animals as a leg up for YouTube fame. That's true. And people using bogus animal rights funded science to push their own ideological care agendas. People who cannot and will not listen to anything new. So yeah, those are issues too that I don't know. It's tricky. It's human nature, I think, is the problem where we're at right now. But we definitely have to, the guy said in the chat, my dad said there's more than one way to keep these animals. There's definitely more than you can put a sand boa in a 55-gallon tank. You can 100% do it, and you can do it right. But I'm not going to do it because it doesn't fit my situation.
Right.
So, but Rufus, you want to give more of your 2 cents on this? How you feel?
Yeah, I think some of the issue really, it's like you guys were really pointing toward it throughout the discussion. Has to do with social media, and just what social media or just messaging on these forums. It doesn't allow for sort of a good back and forth discussion. I think sometimes people kind of talk past one another. They both want what's good for the animal. Usually, they just one person may not be as educated as the other, or they may be kind of talking about the same thing and not even know it because they're not able to have a discussion, face to face.
Yeah.
And so I think part of it is just trying to deal with and figure out how to be patient and maybe ask more questions on social media when you see something that you don't like or don't understand,
That could be a good thing. The first thing you reply should be maybe a question, and not like, "Hey, why are you a dumbass?" Maybe that should not be a question.
Right. Yeah.
But to give them a chance to explain what they're saying. Again, not everybody. It's hard to read certain cues over the internet.
Mm-hmm. I think so. You lose tone, cues of different types. I mean, I think so. But also, just experience. There's different levels of experience, and I think respecting that is another thing that could help. What is it called? Like anthropomorphism, where people just they give animals these human-like qualities, and so someone who's not very experienced, they may say to you, that sand boa, he really needs to be in that 55-gallon because he's going to feel cramped, if he's in something smaller, and they're just applying their feelings or how they think they would feel. They don't maybe understand how that snake operates. They may not know that snake is, not like a black racer out in the wild, actively hunting down lizards and frogs,
Yeah, I mean, you always get my whatever loves me, and like, does it? Like, it tolerates you.
Yeah.
I mean, until it can go get you roses and write you a card, we're not really sure how it feels about you.
Right.
But it's fine if they want to think it loves them, if it helps them take better care. But that doesn't mean that because I take care of my same animal differently, that I don't like my animal. Right. That I have less respect for my animal. We talked about it, because last week, I don't think you were here. Maybe it was the week before. When we talked about Casey Cannon getting hit by someone in one of the Brettles groups because his 10-year-old Brettles male was smaller than theirs. I'm like, and they started bashing him like he doesn't care for his animals. He doesn't know anything. I'm like, you don't know who you're talking to. Casey Cannon has bred Brettles for a long time, is very educated, knows what he's doing.
Australia, and
like he just
Australia
just because he doesn't overfeed his snakes and get them large doesn't mean he's not taking care of his animal, right? But again, that person thinks they're the smart one, so they have to.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. Like, some people are for, say, bioactive enclosures, but at the same time, they may not be for keeping them as naturally as that's what they would be in the wild. Maybe not feeding them for 3 or 4 months in a row.
Yeah. I don't feed my stuff on. It's that whole my snake has to eat every Tuesday at 8. Like that's not how that works. Like a lot of my animals are definitely smaller than other people with the same animal at the same age, because I don't feed mine on a weekly schedule. I feed mine when how do I say it without? I feed mine when I feel like I need to feed it.
Yeah,
which is not always every week. Like I know some of my stuff. Like look, my Samboas can get fat. I'm sure Rufus has seen it. I've seen it. There are people out there with fat ass Samboas because an adult Samboa does not move a lot. It's got a pretty slow metabolism, but they will eat whenever you feed them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will love their animals to death that way. But if you tell them that their animal's fat, they get offended, and then they take it personal. And you're like, well, maybe
I didn't call you fat.
Just your snake shouldn't have fat rolls. I'm just saying, should not have fat rolls. Miller Rabbits, mine are Fridays at 6, all of them. Good luck with that. Getting all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We talked about this weekend. And one of the things I see going to reptile shows, and you've probably seen it at reptile shows, you see these people that
we watched it happen this weekend.
Well, you see these people that they've never owned a reptile. And they go out and they buy their first whatever snake, right? And then they carry it around. And then when someone comes up to them who knows nothing about reptiles, even less than that person, because they've never been around them, well, this person's holding a snake, so they view that person now as a snake expert, and they'll listen to whatever they're saying. But that person doesn't have the experience, but they have no problem saying stuff.
Yeah, the last person I'm asking for advice is the 3 people carrying their 3 snakes around on their neck at a reptile
show. Yeah, they're probably not the one.
They just bought them because you can't bring them in.
Yeah. And so that's another truth. I've said it before. It's people will always believe what they heard from the first person they heard it from.
Mm-hmm.
I've had tons of people ask me how to take care of this animal, this or that, and I'll give them advice and go, well, so-and-so told me to do this. And that's how it is, because that was the first person they heard tell them. And then they didn't branch out from that and learn more. They stayed with what that breeder told them, and it's got to be the only thing. You got to be open. You got to be open to learn more stuff. But yeah, it's a weird hobby, because and any hobby is, like you said, Rufus, there are so many different levels that people are at any given time in the hobby.
Yeah.
But not everybody realizes what level they're at. And so that becomes a problem. And then not everyone realizes what level that person they're talking to is at. And so that becomes a problem.
Well, that's true. And I think you can learn a lot by just say, a few guys have vended at shows. And so like when I'm vending at a show, when I talk to one customer, maybe they have never kept a snake before. And then the next person that walks up to me, they may be like a seasoned veteran. They may have bred sand boas for 20 years and I've just never met them before. And so they start talking to me. I need to listen. I don't just treat them like the last person that came by that had never kept a snake. And so that's that. And which kind of side note, that's a challenge for me at a show, is to go from person to person and try to gauge, okay, where's this person at? What do they know about genetics? What do they know about just husbandry and reproduction for the sand boas, so anyway, it's a good learning experience for me to be behind the table and to try to help people at these different levels. And so I think it would kind of be good for everybody in some way to go through that experience so that, you get used to that, I guess, and seeing all those different levels. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And on that, I unfortunately, and I know you've seen it at shows too, because it's just something you see. There are those breeders behind a table who believe they are the pinnacle of reptile keeping, and any advice they have to give is the advice. And then no matter who comes up to them, they treat them all as beginners, right? I've gone to tables, talked to people, and look, I've kept reptiles for over 20 years. I've gone to tables at shows to someone I've never met. And they're very condescending, even in the way they say hi. They may not be condescending, but that may just be their personality. But like, you talk to them, you're like, okay, but I know what I'm talking about too. Like, we can have a conversation, but again, not all reptile people are people. And so some social cues and some abilities to talk to people in public are not their strong suits. And so again, I think even if you've been keeping for 20, 30, 40 years, you can treat everybody with respect when you talk to them, and you can learn from anybody.
Mhm.
I'm trying to read Miller Ravage. He cracked up the story Warren Booth told where someone told him, I don't know how much you know about genetics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do love when Warren Booth gets questioned about his knowledge on genetics online.
Yeah.
Or at a show. It's, the guy's a doctor. It's cool. But I love that. Or when Travis Wyman gets hit with a what do you know? Like a lot. He knows a lot.
Well, where do I start?
But we can all learn, and I agree with almost all of the comments.
That happened
here.
in the Black Panther group today.
What?
That guy Brett Johnson, that's the biologist who's all about bears.
Yeah.
Some lady told him he needed to go do more research about the bears in East Texas. He's like, I literally have done all the research with the bears in East Texas. Like any of it you read, that's me. Because she said they've increased their population 6-fold in the last couple of years.
I think he would know.
Yeah. He's like, oh, really? Could you cite that? Well, I heard it on the radio. Yeah.
Can you show me those bears?
He's like, well, here's who I am and blah blah. She's like, we need to do more research. And he's like, noted. Thanks. He's a lot nicer than I am.
My dad said Rufus has uncovered the ultimate secret to true customer service. Shut up and listen to your customer. He said it's amazing how much you can learn about a customer by listening, which is true. Again, and I've definitely realized in this hobby you can't judge a book by the cover. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some books where you can get an idea by the cover.
Oh yeah.
But there are a lot that will surprise you.
Like the one we could smell coming this weekend.
Okay, that cover smelled. That's different.
Oh, dude, that was Sorry,
smelled from a mile. But Jason Millerage is part of the trick I've learned at shows is shutting up and listening, and another is smiling and nodding when it's not worth arguing. Definitely. Yes, more people just smile and nod when they walk away. Feel free to make all the jokes you want to with your friend at the table next to you. It's not worth your time.
I agree.
Just let them go. There's so many times where I'm like, oh yeah, you definitely have those in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
You don't fucking have Samboas in your backyard. Stop that.
We hear about bearded dragons a lot too.
I've seen those in my backyard. Okay, yeah, okay,
Mm-hmm.
sure you did. Some people just they've got to tell their story. Anyways, I'll get off the soapbox. I do want to go through some of the stuff in our discussion group, which Chris Eaton's not here, but I will go ahead and put it up on the screen so that Chris Eaton won't fuss at me because I talk about things on the internet that people can't see.
I'm a little disappointed that Chris isn't here since he's not doing his show tonight.
I know he could have been here. What a jerk. You know what? I hope he loses all that. Oh, wait a minute. He already did.
That's not right.
It's not right, but it's funny.
Yeah, because he would say the same thing.
He would. That one-legged bastard. Anyways, let me pull up stuff from our discussion group. I'm sorry, Rufus. I know we sound crazy. And Robert is. Speaking of crazy, this was posted in a group. Yeah, it's a person dressed as a chameleon.
Saw that.
I also noticed that Lee and Amanda did not comment on it at all, even though I tagged them in it to ask them what kind of chameleon this was. They did not feel the need to tell me what kind of chameleon it was. Carl Vargas did tell me that it's a karma chameleon. Reptile people are weird. I'm not even sure it's a reptile person. This person is different.
Yeah.
But this was an interesting one. I did not read it. I'm not gonna lie. I read the title. I'm good by the title. Ancient Egypt had far more venomous snakes than the country today, according to our new study of a scroll. Now, are those the same kind of people then that would also tell you now cottonmouths will chase you?
Right.
Or that king snakes are breeding with rattlesnakes?
Right.
Like, did Egypt have those same kind of people? I imagine they did. Any population has those kind of people. And was that the person that was writing the scroll?
It's entirely possible.
So how true is it? Also, it's not hard for me to believe that we've killed a lot of snakes since ancient Egypt to now.
That seems like a pretty finite statement based on something that on very, very little evidence.
Yeah, I don't know. Interesting if there was. There's another person. This was a person who didn't know. They started listening to our podcast, and I guess they haven't listened to enough of it before they commented and didn't expect the replies they were going to get. Look, I appreciate everyone that listens to our podcast. I promise to do. But understand, I'm a smart ass, and you're probably going to get a smart ass response on certain things, especially if it's ball python related. Because if you've listened to like any 2 episodes, you'll realize I don't like ball pythons. I just don't. But this was thanks for letting join. Only just started to listen to the podcast. Hate to say it. I'm going to have to fix it because of the way they typed. Hate to say it. It's royal python, not ball python.
And they're also in Europe.
Yeah, they are in Europe. Graham Charman, shut up. I get it. We just had this whole conversation about being nice to people, but I have my own podcast. I don't have to be. Travis Wyman. I read this the other day. I forgot what it was. It was a picture of an alligator. For anybody that's not watching for the radio people, it says, friends, why do you bring us out to the middle of this swamp to train? Would a flat range be better? Me, I'm helping you learn how to move quickly in difficult terrain. Release the swamp puppy, and then they release an alligator.
Yeah.
Snap and turtle. It's not a lot of snap and turtle stuff. There's another thing about cats. Again, we all know outdoor cats are horrible. If you're a reptile person, if you're a nature person, reptile cats or outside cats are horrible. This is one that you showed me, Robert. You want to explain what happened here?
Yeah, Rhett Stanberry down in Florida found 2 dead eastern mud snakes on the road in a very short time span. And what did it say? How many babies? 89, 88 babies, 88 eggs.
They were 100 yards apart, and he found 88 eggs.
So that's 90 dead eastern mud snakes in 100 yards, which sucks.
Oh, that sucks. That is such a cool snake, the mud snake.
Yeah.
Again, weird snakes that live in the ground.
Yep.
I love my weird snakes that live in the ground, except this one eats amphiumas, so I can't keep it. And then again, for anybody that didn't know, this is the boa that we were talking about, the Oaxacan dwarf boa. I want it. It's amazing looking. It's gray. I need one. So if anybody's taking a trip to Mexico anytime soon,
that's like almost Belize.
Okay,
It's like right there.
Just throw it in a bag. I mean, it's illegal. Don't get caught. And I don't know if you get caught.
That would be like saying, "Hey, man, next time you go to Houston, stop in Amarillo and grab me a."
This was a good one I saw. Someone shared, and you can appreciate this, Rufus. Picture taking. If you're going to sell snakes in a business, especially with something like Morph Market, please learn to take a picture. Like, it's not that hard, and it doesn't have to be amazing. But things like, if it's in a tub, maybe move the water bowl out and make sure the paper's dry and clean. Nice, good, clean picture of it. This post also shows you all the different lights that it gets shot in. Pay attention to the light you're shooting it in, because that will definitely make it look one way or the other. It may not look so realistic as to how it is. I've seen a lot of things posted, especially on some of the boa pages, some like hypo boas that were definitely shot a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the way that snake looks. Like it's definitely the light on it. Jason Miller Ravish said Rufus does photos really well. I agree. Your photos are really good. There's yours and Pamela, when I'm looking at Samboa pictures, are done very well. So what's your 2 cents in taking pictures to sell snakes?
I mean, for me, everybody has a different way of displaying them. For me, it's about the snake. And so I don't try to put a lot of other things in the picture. I don't want things that detract from the snake. So like personally showing a water bowl or showing something like that, it's not that that's bad. It's just to me, it detracts from the focus of, or the whole purpose of that picture, which is to show you the snake. And so, and this is of course in reference to taking pictures of snakes for sale, right? Like on Morph Market.
Yeah.
I don't want a lot of clutter. I just want the snake. That way people see this is what's for sale right here. And I want it to be represented well and accurately too. So where you talk about the lighting, I do my best to get lighting that will, where I can sit and maybe look at that picture and look at that snake and go, that's as close as I can get it right there,
Well, I like yours. Anybody go check out Rufus Darden Reptiles on Morph Market. You'll see your pictures are very clean.
Oh,
You've got this kind of gray background, very minimalistic gray background, and the animals are front and centered, focused, and it's just them, really well lit. And it's not hard to do. You don't have to have a huge setup. You don't have to. I mean, I do have a light box, but you don't have to have a light box. But if you have one, you can find a cheap light box and set it up. That way, you get the same picture every time. Like I have my my sinuses are starting to go crazy. But I have a gray like tile that I went to Lowe's and bought, and it's a really cool looking like slate tile. And a lot of my pictures got taken on that. But the problem was with my recent litter of boas, my red tail boas was I unfortunately had anery pop up. We've had this conversation on the podcast before, and didn't want to have anery, but anery popped up. Anery does not look good on a gray slate tile because they themselves are also gray. And so that's when I found, white. I went with a nice white background, but you have to be careful because again, lighting. Again, sit there. If you have a light box set up, it's very easy to put the animal in there, look at your phone, look at the animal, kind of gauge it, and get the same thing every time. Especially if you're someone who's going to be selling on a regular basis. If you're wanting to do this as a business, figure out your best way to do this. Miloradovich says your composition always shows the animal well with good angles. Yes, the angles are important. Especially for something, if it's a regular Samboa, I may get like one just good picture because there's not gonna be much difference from the backside of that animal. Like if it's a regular Kenyan Samboa, it's gonna be the same thing. But one good above, kind of up above as much of the body as possible. Now, if you have some sort of animal that does definitely a pattern that is different on sides, or you're gonna want to get some good shots of the sides, the back, the front, and post those on there. But pictures, please, people, try a little harder on some of your pictures. Especially if you're going to have something. I've seen expensive animals get posted with some of the worst pictures. I'm like, You're not going to get that price for that. Like, people are not going to see it as worth the price, and it may be worth the price, and you may have immaculate care. It's just the picture doesn't show that. But again, Rufus, yours are great. So when I saw that, I was like, yeah, picture taking. That's an important thing as far as business goes. Someone who sells snakes. I saw this. Nathan Holcomb posted. I saw this video of these people releasing all these alligator snapping turtles, and all I could think as someone who lived in Louisiana is that some Cajun is watching this going, where'd that pond at?
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's like a month's worth of dinner right there. It's
I think all I could see was the one that somersaulted into the water
and turned around.
And was just looking at him like, really, bro?
The guy dumped it out of the bucket and he turned around and opened his mouth. What the fuck, man?
Yeah, what just
Everyone else got gently released and nudged into the water, and this one just comes tumbling out of the bucket. But I mean, they released like 20 something of these into the water.
All these people in the comments are like, that's too many in one spot. Then that
you have no idea how big that pond.
You can't tell. That could be the edge of a river.
Yeah,
you can't even tell.
You have no idea what that is. But whatever it is, there's some coon ass that wants to know where it's at because that's his dinner.
He wants to go set some lines.
This is one of this is that guy decided to show his animals. My dad posted this one. So this is where my dad and I used to go kayak fishing all the time, and I miss this place. It was a great place. And it took me a second time watching this video to realize what I was seeing, because they're feeding the pelican some of the live bait, and then I realized when he opened his mouth, he's missing the top of his bill. Like he has no top of his bill; he just has the bottom. So just kind of chunking it into the open part of his mouth. So I thought that was crazy. That goes back to that alligator that we saw that got posted around like a month ago. That was missing the top half of its mouth. Yeah, this pelican just has a bottom. That was cool. I like this. Jason Creekmore gave us a brief description of what this video and all this says. So brief version, since he knows that I won't read. Young girl finds lionfish in freshwater Florida and says, kill them all. Got my support. Kill them all. They don't belong there. Also, it scares me that they said they found it in freshwater, because that's horrifying. That is a saltwater fish, and a horrible one at that. So that's stuff over on our discussion page. Again, everybody, go check out our Reptile Gumbo Facebook discussion page. It's the Reptile Gumbo podcast discussion group on Facebook. That's where we tend to have all our fun little conversations and everything. Go check that out. So anyways, back to Rufus. I'm sure I have like 5 million more Samboa questions that I'm going to think of later, just because I never get to talk Samboas because they're not cool apparently.
No, they are cool.
They are cool. It's just when you go to shows, like it's me and our buddy JT, and that's about it for Samboas.
We haven't seen JT in 2 months.
I know, he needs to stay away from shows, and that way when I start having Samboas, I can sell Samboas. It'll just be me. I got 2 females that I'm pretty sure are pregnant. Let me ask you this, Rufus. Do you feed your females while they're pregnant?
It kind of depends. I always reduce the amount of feed that
Yeah.
I'm feeding while they're pregnant. Now, some of them just don't want to eat at all. If they refuse enough, I just leave them alone. Don't worry about it. I'll let them go all the way through, especially if they're good body weight. But there are some of them that, they want to eat, but I just still reduce it as a precaution.
Yeah, I have found the one thing I love about boas, sand boas, red tail boas, most of them, is that when pregnant, will usually still take food. Whereas like someone with like pythons or something, like I tried a carpet python once, it got gravid, and I was like, oh, I can put weight on it while it's gravid. That was not happening. She was not eating once she had eggs, and she was done. A lot of ball pythons won't do it either. But with my boas, my sand boas say they're eating large adult mice normally. When they're gravid, I'm feeding them like hoppers or fuzzies or small mice every now and then. I just find it helps keep the weight on them, because for folks that don't do live birth snakes, it's rough on them. Like a lot of your live birth snakes, if they don't eat the whole time, I mean, they look like an empty sock at the end of it, and it is rough.
Yeah, they look rough if they don't eat at all. If they just completely refuse food for the full like 3-4 months. Yeah.
And you've got these ball python people who like it'll lay eggs, and that ball python's ready to breed the next season. I'm like, oh, that's rough to do with some of these boas. These things just they are not ready the next season. I give everything a year off. Yeah, I probably could pump food into them and have them at the right weight, but that's a lot to go through, especially with like my rainbow boa carries for almost 6 months. Like that's half a year pregnant.
Boas, they're 10 or 11 months.
Yeah, my red tails are 5 months. The sand boas are about 4 months or so. So I mean, that's a long time. That's a lot put in there. So my dad once said it's royal pythons. Shut up. So I was just curious because I like to try and feed them if they can. Just I find that it helps with the cut recovery too. They recover a little better, and they keep some weight on. I had my first losses about a year ago, 2 years ago, breeding, where I lost a female. Like it's never really been an issue, but I had some that had infertile ovums. I had one who had a huge infertile ovum that got stuck in the vent, and I mean it took forever to oiling it up and do all I could finally get it out. But I got it out, and she died shortly after. It was bad. Yeah. And then I had another female who had a rough one, and she made it. She's fine now. But now in my head, I'm like, don't know if I want to breed her again, which kind of sucks because she wasn't cheap. It wasn't like one of my normals. This was my striped snow female who was not cheap when I bought her. And I'm like, she had some babies, but it was rough. She had some infertiles, and she had some definitely that were stuck that came out later.
Did she pass it all though? I mean,
yeah, she passed everything, and she's good. Okay. She's fine, and she's living. She's eating. And that was a while back, but I just I'd bred a lot of sand boas up to that point before I lost one to giving birth. And like I said, coming in and finding the one with the massive hardened ovum sticking out of her, that was rough. But it's part of breeding. Yeah, if you're going to breed, you're going to risk losing stuff. It's just unfortunate part of it. Mm-hmm. Jason Miller actually is hoping to have a pair of viper boas this year. 9-month gestation. Jesus. Wow. All right, well, in 2 years, Jason, I'll go, or 3 or 4 year, whenever they finally happens, I'm gonna get some viper boas from you. But Jesus Christ, that's 9 months. That's crazy. I just couldn't imagine like that long and not eating. Like, because the thing about in the wild, it's a 9-month gestation, and animals in the wild don't have huge amounts of fat buildup. Like we've seen most snakes in the wild are thin by hobby standards, right? Mm-hmm. Most snakes are not the size that we keep them in the hobby, and yet they may still go 9 months without eating, and then have babies, and then survive that. I mean, you talk about looking like an empty sock or an empty toothpaste tube.
No, he's talking to your dad.
Oh, just Jason's talking about ball pythons. Stop it, Jason. We don't do ball pythons around here. Gross. Get back to the sand boa stuff. Right. You ready?
Yeah. I gotta get home.
Okay, we'll let Rufus go. I'll think of questions later to message Rufus and ask about sand boas, or I'll just annoy him for the next 2 years about Arabians.
That's fine.
I want them so bad. As reptile people, a lot of us are collectors, and so like that's how we get into it. That's why we end up having a room with 100 snakes in it, right? Because like we want to collect stuff. And sand boas, there's so many of them, and I want one of all of them. Or well, I take that back. I want a pair of all of them. And two of the harder ones to get are the Arabians, and then how do you javelins, I guess. Yeah. I see those every now and then pop up, but not very common. So that's one I'm still missing too. I got to get those. So anyways, Rufus, if people want to reach out to you, check out your awesome animals that you have, or your photography, so they can see how to take a picture of a snake. So if they want to know how to sell a snake, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Rufus Darden Reptiles, and also my website's rufusdardenreptiles.com.
And
where are you located at, Rufus?
I'm in Tennessee.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know you do Tinley. So if it makes a chance to go to Tinley, go out and see him at Tinley and see his animals.
Sure. I do both the Tinley shows every year, and recently started doing the, I guess you say, Arlington, Dallas NARBC as well.
Okay,
You're not doing St. Louis this weekend?
I will not be vending there, but I'll be visiting. So I'll be around. You guys going?
No, okay. But I want to try and make it to Arlington, next Arlington. And I think we're going to try and make it to the next Tinley because Chris is going to be there.
Yeah. Well, Chris is going to be at the next Arlington too.
Is he?
Yeah. Him and Rachel have been talking. Well, it's not even Arlington anymore now.
That's true. It's Dallas. It's Dallas now because they've moved it to the new location.
And as of now, there will be no boas or retics or anything big that can get big there because the city of Dallas is saying no from what I'm hearing.
Really? Sand boas will be be
Yeah.
It'll be a sand boa only show.
Right.
Sold.
And ball pythons. And ball pythons.
So my dad asked where in Tennessee because he's in Northeast Alabama, just south of Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm in it's called Hillham, Tennessee. It's kind of close to Cookeville, Tennessee. And I guess the next, if you don't know where Cookeville, Tennessee is, close to Knoxville.
I know where that's at.
Yeah, about an hour away from Knoxville or so.
Are you a Tennessee fan?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Probably not like a diehard Tennessee fan. No, I wouldn't claim to be.
Nothing sucks like a big orange.
See, I can laugh at it.
I grew up in the SEC, so I can make fun of every SEC team some way. Well, awesome. Thanks for coming on, man. Hang around while we log off, and we'll talk as soon as we get off camera. Everybody else, thanks for being here. We have a guest next week. We're going to talk Diamondback terrapins next week.
Oh,
I have a guest lined up to talk about Diamondbacks. You know, the turtle that we can't own in this state.
Right.
Stupid laws.
That were on the table next to us this weekend.
They were on the table next to us in Louisiana this weekend. We can't own them. So join us again next week for episode 191. We're talking about Diamondback terrapins. All right. Good night, everybody.